Good evening. We are live. We are live, guys. On Wednesday, 18th of November, we are going up against England versus Iceland in the Nations League. We are going up against I'm a Celebrity. I think this is where you want to be. I've got guests, special guests. I've got all kinds of screenshots. I want to hear from you. We want comments. We want chats. We want questions. Let me introduce who we've got. Let me start by going to my right or left. I'm trying to figure this out. Mark Beck from ITFC Unrestricted. Even to you, Mark.
Hello.
And from his own YouTube channel, the king of football transfer scouting, player recruitment expert, Luke Penning. Luke, how would you describe yourself? What's your channel title?
I'd say it's kind of the fans' perspective on scouting and recruitment. I kind of tell people a little bit more about players they might not necessarily know about. I kind of specialize in lower league players. I think that's the market that we're trying to, go in now with lack of funds and that sort of thing. So I always try and bring to attention certain players. I've also got some knowledge of like the lower age groups of certain clubs as well. So I try to show my knowledge and ideas of players that I think would fit into our team on my YouTube channel.
Love it. Mark, do you want to tell us about Unrestricted, given Luke's just gone straight into plug mode there? I didn't even have to prompt him, and Luke we'll get you all your addresses and ats and all that kind of stuff, but tell us about Unrestricted. Tell us about you as well, Mark.
Tell us about me. Well, some of you probably know who I am now, because I don't usually show my face on my YouTube videos or in the podcasting world, but you go, oh no, it's one of them boys who was on Ipswich Fan Zone in the past. So basically it spawned from that. I think lockdown, as much as we don't want to talk about the dreaded C word or that other C word either.
Easy.
Yeah.
He's coming on and he's shooting.
But yeah, lockdown gave me a lot of time to think, and yeah, Ipswich is usually on my mind. And I think you'd probably agree as well, fellas, that it's probably on your mind a little bit too often. And yeah, I think I needed a space to vent. And really, I wasn't really expecting to get the levels of support that I have done. And yourself and the two of you have given me great support in launching it so far. So yeah, it might have been a little bit quiet from me the last few weeks. I've had a little bit of a break. Work sort of getting a little bit on top of me at the minute, but we'll be back on Saturday with our usual. Well, it'll be Sunday, but I'll be recording on Saturday. So Sunday at 6 is our usual show. I tried to do a mini match pod, which does a little bit preview and midweek match review as well. I tried to do them, but we'll have to see how it goes. But we'll try and get back to a regular schedule for you now. I've had a bit of a break and had my feet up for a little bit. So, yeah.
Excellent stuff. So, there's kind of three things I want to talk about tonight. It'd be really interesting to get a kind of a different perspective. Blue Monday, along with a lot of the other ITFC podcasts, is a kind of a bit of a skewed perspective, I would suggest, because we're all a little bit advanced. I mean, how old do you think I am? 30s. Yep, 30s. Yeah. In my 30s, just about. So it'd be really, I think it's quite fascinating to get a perspective of someone who is still supporting Ipswich, just hung in there, and hasn't got the kind of soaring eyes of the Robson era. I was born after the Robson era, so even I didn't have that, but who missed the kind of Lyle Premier League era, maybe the start of the Burley era as well. So really fascinated to get your guys' perspective on your ITFC histories. We'll talk about Shrewsbury. I want to talk about 5 subs. But as always, please just give us your thoughts in the comments. Give us a shout. Give us a thumbs up. We want to hear from you. If you've got questions for Luke about player recruitment, you've got questions for Mark about scarves, then let's hear it.
Anything. You can ask me anything. I'm an open book.
There you go. There's an invite if ever there was needed one. Evening to James. Hello, James. Evening to Andrew. Evening, Run Fat Boy Run. Much better than anything else in the box. Quite agree with that. Evening to George. Good to see you as always. Hello to Nick. Loving this. We've got the usual suspects, which is great. Fantastic to see all of you. Hi to Andrew as well. Keep these coming. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your predictions for Saturday as well. But let's start by understanding a little bit more about our special guests. Who wants to go first? I'm gonna look at Luke, the young innocent face. Luke, but you've only known surely ITFC misery since you started. Can you give us a bit of an insight when you started following the town? Kind of the high points, maybe some of the players that are kind of for you the cult heroes. Tell us about your ITFC journey so far.
Yeah, funnily enough, I didn't actually kind of really get into football until my early, around since when I was like 12. I kind of grew up, knowing about the club and what had gone on and that sort of thing. I think my earliest town memory was when my brother decided to just imitate Chef Kikuchi's swan dive in the back garden. I remember being surrounded by my dad, granddad support Ipswich, and they're very avid fans. There's a lot of videotapes growing up. Unfortunately, I was too young to really have any memories of the playoff final win with Barnsley. I do remember the day hearing a load of people honking their horns on their cars and kind of curious of what was going on. I think I was about 4 at the time. I remember telling my parents, "Oh, what are all these horns about?" And they were kind of saying, "Oh, we're Ipswich in the Premiership." Obviously, when you grow up and you see the history and you read into everything that's happened, it really does make you happy and supporting the club. I think my first match, was around, I think I went to Blackpool versus, this is really changing things, Blackpool versus Ipswich. We were at home, and it was Velishi Shimlakowski.
Oh, yes. Thronka, didn't he?
Yeah.
North London.
I think Paul Dickoff scored for Blackpool in that game. But I think from then onwards, it was just something about kind of growing up and watching players like, I think Owen Garvin was one of the first players that I watched and was kind of really impressed with how technical he was on the ball. And obviously, he went on to have a kind of good career at Blight with injuries at places like Crystal Palace and them kind of teams. I think in terms of successes, I think the closest successes that I've come to know, or big results as it were, was the 1-0 I think Carling Cup win over Arsenal when Friskin scored. I remember watching it on, I didn't get to the game, but I remember watching it on BBC One and then going into school the next day and it being this like really, really big thing that we're beating Arsenal. And in terms of big successes, I think the closest I've come to was the semi-final defeat against Norwich. I think that was the closest in terms of successes that I've had anyway. Obviously, for me growing up, a lot of the times that I've had to experience with Ipswich has been the lows. I experienced the club getting relegated, which is something that I never thought I'd experience. When you grow up and you hear about the club having all these good eras. I watched the most recent documentary that Andy Warren did, a really good documentary. And it makes you really proud of the club that you've had, but at the same time, it makes you feel a bit, upset that you weren't able to, have that kind of experience as a fan, because you always hear these good stories about, Marcus Stewart scoring, really good goals in the Premier League, that sort of thing, and the fact that, we never lost at home in Europe, and it's very good hearing those things. But when you're growing up and you're watching Town, you always hang on to the fact that the club's in League One and you don't really have many positives to take. So I think that's something that hopefully, fingers crossed in my lifetime, I actually have
in your lifetime. I hope so, Luke. Bloody hell. League One forever. You will never leave. But yeah, interesting thought there that you by the way, we'll keep you, if you're watching this and have a passing interest in what's happening with England, I will do score updates if you want. So don't worry about that. Interesting there, Mark, what Luke was saying about how you feel disappointed to have missed out on the history. I want to hear about your kind of your history watching ITFC, and I know you've followed us kind of a lot and do a lot of away trips as well, and obviously the fan zones had you up and down the country as well.
It did.
How significant do you feel the history is, and how much do you think that's? Because for someone like me, it skews my perspective. Does it skew your perspective, or is this something that is a little bit intangible and doesn't really matter to you. You just know what you've seen, and what has gone before is irrelevant. How do you reconcile, the statues outside the ground, people like me banging on about Marcus Stewart, but what you've seen?
I think there's always going to be glory periods in whatever time you support a football club, and I think for the hardest thing about being an Ipswich fan is I think having those times in the past to see where we are now, it does leave you very depressed. But what I do find in talking to people much older than you, Rich, people in the glory days, is that hope is still there when you talk to people, and you can see how much it means to them, and they don't realise that they're doing it, but they're talking about Moore and Tyson, Mick Mills, the FA Cup, the UEFA Cup, all the trips that they did with that. You can see it in their eyes how much that means to them, and I think that's really special. And to talk about other clubs, I think that came to light yesterday about a club that don't really have much history, but I'm very proud to have that still. Obviously, for a lad like myself who's not experiencing that, there is going to be an element of jealousy there, but I'd much rather be jealous for something that happened to my club than jealous of something that's happened to someone else's club. So in terms of my time, I probably joined, the Ipswich Town community at the very worst time. My first game was a pre-season friendly in 2002. So I missed all the Premier League. It was Celta Vigo at home. It is my fault.
No, relegation already happened, presumably.
Yeah. So it had already happened. So I missed all the Premier League. My family aren't really into football. My sister got me into football, and they're not really shaped a lot of my interest in life, which is quite good because I'd be into caravanning and country dancing if they did. So, but no, they've supported me in whatever I've done, which is good. But so going back to football, so yeah, that's where I came in 2002. So for me, my peak is 2003, 2004. That Joe Royal team, Shefki Cucci, Darren Bent.
The entertainers.
I still remember. Yeah, I still remember I wasn't at the game when it was at Upton Park, but Darren Bent with that 1-0 in victory in the playoff final. I was at where I lived, Debenham Leisure Centre. Someone punched a hole through the ceiling because it was such a euphoric moment. So that's probably as high as it's ever got without really understanding what's going on at the time. But yeah, after that, I had a season ticket holder during that period with my sister, when my auntie was there, embarrassing us all in the family zone, jumping on top of the seats every time we scored. So if you're in Block JJ at the time, you all know who she is probably. But yeah, then you sort of grow up and start playing football, thinking that I could maybe get on the pitch one day, but that never happened. So you stick to watching. But yeah, unfortunately, I've not been able to have a season ticket as much as I liked. And really, I've picked my moments to have a season ticket. When you're a young lad, work gets in the way. For whatever reason, I chose to work Tuesday and Saturday nights as a part-time job. So that screwed all football for many years for me. But so when I did come back for being a little bit older, 14, 15, my first season ticket back after the Joe Royal era was the Roy Keane era. So I got that era.
Wow.
So got all that false dawn and excitement for that. So yeah, we had that joy, and then the little bit of Paul Jewell that was after that. After that, we had obviously Mick came in after Porno Paul.
Yeah, I wanted to pause on Mick because obviously a large proportion of our conversations on the pod for 4 odd years or whatever it was and subsequently have been debating the merits of Mick. Where do you guys? What's your stance on, Luke? I'll start with you. Your stance on Big Mick. Are you, because of the relative kind of performance of the managers in the kind of period where you've been watching, is Mick kind of above and beyond anyone else that you've seen, and therefore do you get the criticism, or do you dismiss the criticism, or do you understand it? Were you able to see that we were, well, you tell me, I won't put words in your mouth.
Yeah. I think as the longer you follow football, the more you understand that you have to kind of spend money and improve your squad to get success. I think with Mick McCarthy, when he first came in, I remember he steered us from relegation. I remember going to quite a few of those games. And luckily enough, when I was in school, my English teacher used to give away tickets to games. So I went to I think a late Burnley win, a couple of games when he first took over in that season. He steered us from relegation, and at that time, I kind of felt quite happy because it was a team that were almost on the brink of getting relegated and did survive really well. Obviously, the seasons that followed when he was there, and the missing out on promotion to the Premier League, the lack of funding, the whole Norwich debacle when Chambers scored and the Foxtrot Oscar thing. I think from then on, I kind of realised that we needed to change. I went to my brother was ended up working at the time, so as a treat, I took him to a Tuesday night game, which played Hull. I think we lost like 5-0 or something. And at the end of the game, they had this whole thing where they did like a huddle on the pitch.
The 3-0 game. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And everyone was saying, "Oh, you have to go, you have to go." And I think that was the first time going to games that I'd actually experienced that. The whole crowd physically going after a manager to get him out. And I was actually at the Barnsley 1-0, which was, I think, his last game in charge of us when Jonas Knudsen scored. I remember I was at university at the time, up at the waterfront in Ipswich. I remember walking home, get a phone call, and my dad was like, "Oh, did you hear what happened to Mick McCarthy?" I was like, "Oh no, what happened?" He's like, "He's resigned. He's left. He's not the manager anymore." And at that point, following the club through decline, you kind of think of that you're going to have this, the springboard effect where you build up with a new manager, this whole new era that was branded with Paul Hurst. And sadly, from then, it's never really hit the heights that I expected. I think, for what Mick McCarthy did from saving the club that was on the brink of relegation and doing what he did with the lack of funds that he had, I think he's a manager that can be regarded within the last couple of years. But I think the criticism that he's had is also justified as well.
Mark, what was your stance on Big Mick?
See, for me, I'm not going to deny it. I was delighted to see Mick McCarthy go. And maybe that was a bit rash at the time. I think for me, not defending it, looking back now, he certainly had the last laugh. He's sunning it up in Cyprus at the minute, I think, isn't he?
Yes,
So, but at the time, I just remember that feeling when we didn't even win the game, but I think it was that final game of that season, 17-18, 2-2. Brian Klug was there. The way that the fans reacted at the end of that game, I went back to the Greyhound after that, a fine drinking establishment, if there ever was one in Ipswich. I think Brian came back to the pub then as well. And
yes,
you just felt like it was going to be the start of something. And as Luke said, it really sadly hasn't. But yeah, I think for me, being in the generation I am, football is everywhere. You can't get away from it. Social media, if you scroll through your timeline, probably 3 out of your 10 tweets are going to be football related, probably even more for avid fans like us. Exactly. You can't get away from it. It's everywhere. And, mixed football wasn't the greatest. It was effective, but it wasn't the most easy on the eye. And I think for someone who's quite young, I was spending money going to away games, seeing us lose 1-0 and not really showing up. That really sort of probably warped my perspective on how things were going. But when you look at someone who's been there, like yourself, who's seen more managers than I have, Mick doesn't really, if you compare him to what we've got now, but probably even some of the managers in your team, Mick is probably well up there in what he actually achieved in terms of the restrictions that he had. So yeah, I think it's just for a lot of people my age, I think it's just we're expecting so much more. And I think maybe it's that jealousy thing that we mentioned a little bit earlier. We wanted that taste of its success, and with the Premier League being so close in the way it sort of, it fell away a little bit, didn't it? And I'm not going to put that all down to Mick. There's plenty that's gone on at the club besides Mick McCarthy. I think that's probably where the frustration lies. But yeah, looking back, I think the big question you probably asked me, would I take him back right this second? I don't know if I can answer that, but I think I'd certainly take Championship football over League One football.
Yeah, I think we'd all say that. If anyone wants to ask that question of Mark and Luke in the comments, I won't ask it, but if someone else wants me to ask it, drop us a comment and I'll do that. Let's go through some of the more of the shouts that we've had. Evening to everyone. Hello to Tobotic. Good to hear from you. Hello from Bars Barley. Nick, lucky guy. I had Robson England era too. So yeah, there's always kind of tears, aren't there, of people who've had the good days and how far into that they went. I wanted to ask you about this. I saw this from George. I've never seen him play in the Premier League and can't remember us ever beating Norwich. George, man, I feel your pain. Have you got, what is your guys' best Derby day memory? Because again, there won't be too many for you to call back on, are there?
Super Danny Haynes for me.
Is it the away one or
Yeah.
the 3-1 Legwinski?
Both. I love Legwinski, but we've got to take it nowadays, especially
Take
after that. Yeah, take a point, definitely.
Luke, any memorable Derby day moments for you?
Yeah, I think the exact same, really. I remember that, well, for me, the iconic Haynes goal with the handball going in. I think of recent memory, I think the first Norwich game I actually got to go to was the 1-0 defeat. I think James Maddison scored.
Okay,
yeah, that kind of says it all.
My first Norwich game was a 2-1 win over Christmas, and Gary Megson scored own goal header in the last minute to win us the game. That's my my first Derby day. There you go. I've set the bar high, and it's kind of been roller coasters ever since. Let's see some more comments from Football Run. Lucky enough to have the early years. It's been mainly Dross since Magilton left. Let's keep going through these. Wow, sorry, I just had a huge amount of comments come in, so apologies for this. Let's keep going through these. Blues in the blood. I'm watching this and realizing how much I miss PR. I think this is kind of like therapy, isn't it, at the moment? And I have to say that I don't know about you guys, the last 10 days with even a crap iFollow stream is better than nothing. I've missed it. I don't know about you guys. Luke, have you missed it or not?
Yeah, I think for me, the Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, iFollow streams have kind of become part of, a schedule in a way. Like in lockdown, when the first lockdown, when it happened, there was no football, there was nothing to really, to latch on side. I think what I miss most about football is actually the social aspect of it, going there, having the whole match day experience. I think when iFollow started, I think maybe a lot of fans expected quite a lot from it. Obviously, not something we really had the experience to do because I think it was only limited to overseas at the time. But funnily enough for me, I think whenever international breaks come around, it just it just feels like an empty week. Like I'm always looking forward to Saturday and watching the Town. I think last weekend was the third weekend that I'd actually watched Soccer Saturday and was watching it because they were showing all the goals that were going in. Normally I look forward to watching, but my Saturday is normally occupied in watching the Town play. So that's something that I miss, especially in international breaks anyway.
You watching Pompey Plymouth as well, I seem to recall.
Yeah, Pompey Plymouth. I watched them the other night.
Always be scouting.
When I can, I try to watch as many games of football as I can.
Keep an eye on Frank Newball.
BT Sport and Premier Sports. They show some Scottish football on the Premier Sports, which is like another television provider. So I was watching a Scottish Betfred Cup between Greenwich and St Mirren the other day. So that was quite interesting.
That's hardcore, Luke. More comments. Nick Muller, the Bully era. We had 25,000 midweek games, great days. I mean, I'm not sure we did, Nick. I think the stadium development, the big crowds kind of came after. Well, maybe a little bit. Yeah, certainly the Royal era. You see now games in the 2002, 3, 4 season, 29,000 gates. Just crazy.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. One from Terbotte. Just a quick one, Mark. You talked about your content and what you've been involved in before. Do you mind just having a chat about Fan Zone? Terbotte here. Any thoughts on Fan Zones returning? I think possibly COVID is, for the type of show that Fan Zone was, COVID is just an absolute destroyer of that kind of format where, you and Ashley were speaking to folks, weren't you, and getting opinions there and then, and in the fan zone itself. What's the story there? I know Ashley's doing his own stuff and there's FNZ. What's the story there?
So I think last season took its toll on, everyone. I think it's how it all ended in the end. And I think, as Luke was saying, not being at games now does take its toll. And the social aspect was really the only thing keeping us going. Last season was a really good season for me in terms of like meeting people I've never met before, and I've formed probably a really close knit group of friends through Fan Zone. So for us, we wanted to try something new. Ash is a very creative guy, and we wanted to branch out into sort of the broader footballing spectrum, as hard as that can be. But what we wanted to do is just not purely just for ourselves. I think really the times we've had, as we've said, being an Ipswich fan at the minute, it's very much a dross. It's misery, and we just wanted to experience just some highs and different experiences going across Europe and places that, you know, you've said, I've been there, I've seen that with your own eyes, and we wanted to try and capture that and bring that to people. But as you said, COVID is a real, you know, dagger through that, and it has really disrupted it. We did do some player interviews with various ex-professionals, and really enjoyed some of them that we've done. Some current managers as well. John Coleman's probably my favourite one. Really nice bloke, and he owes us a pint when we go up there. So we'll have to remember that. He'll probably get sacked by the time we get back up there. So, but no, at the minute, I think all plans are on hold. It's not really fair for me to talk on Ash's behalf because
No.
it's his baby. But safe to say, we're all very happy at the minute. Without doing any content at the minute, Ash is taking some time to focus on himself, and is very happy in his personal life. And yeah, we're all good. There's no Oasis style split, but there's no fight or anything that split us
Drama.
up or anything. No, we're all good. But yeah, I'm not going to promise you anything. It's probably be fair for Ash to speak on that. But yeah, no plans for the meantime, unfortunately.
That's all good. Well, you've got unrestricted, and that's all good as well. So there's plenty of stuff going on, which is good. And who knows what, you know, when some kind of normality returns, what we'll all do then.
Yeah.
Let's go through some of these. I want to kind of bring things up to date as well. Start getting some opinions. Thank you to Joseph C.W. Williams, a like on Facebook. Hello to you, Joseph. England are 3-0 up. Phil Foden has scored. This is like Soccer Saturday. Chris, what's going on? I don't know, Jeff. Blue Stoke. I took my son during the Roy Keane era. He said to me, "Why did you make me an Ipswich fan?" Have you ever had that feeling, guys? Why? We all have it. Maybe. I remember. So this is going to age me as well. Arsenal beat us 5-0 at home, I think, in the league. 92, 93, 93. I think 93, 94. And I was born in West London, and I remember asking my dad, do I need to support Ipswich? Can I support someone else? And he said, well, you should support the team from the place you're born or the place where you live. You were born in West London, so the nearest team to you is Watford. And at that point, I think Watford were in either the second or third division. So that was the kind of decision made there. Have you ever had the kind of moment of, why do I do this, or not? Have you stayed, you know, unwavering? What?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always stuck with them because I've always lived. I'm a country bumpkin, as they say. Surprised my Wi-Fi is holding up so well on this. I've got mum's out with the aerial out on the roof at the minute, so
that dial-up is strong.
Yeah, it's good. It is good. But no, it's never. I think it's just because being so rural, there literally is nothing else. It is Ipswich Town or bust, really. Or if you want to cross the border and take your passport, you can go up there. But that's never ever crossed my mind. Don't you worry. So no, I think when you're young, you sort of flirt between teams. You know, the big teams that are doing well in the Premier League. I think we all had a soft spot for the Invincibles, Thierry Henry at points, and you go through spells of liking teams, particularly when I was young. But Ipswich has always been there till death do us part, I think, unfortunately.
Very good. England 4, Iceland 0. Phil Foden has scored again. So don't go and switch over because it's the 84th minute. There is nothing else is going to happen. Iceland are not going to win at 5-4. You need to stay right here. Luke, is your loyalty been ever tested supporting Ipswich?
No, I'm one of those people that would watch us play in the National League North if we were in that position. I think, for me, as soon as I started supporting the club, that's the club that I'm going to support, for the rest of my life. I enjoy watching as I said, I enjoy watching different teams and that sort of thing. But Ipswich Town Football Club is the club I'll always support.
Another question for you. Yeah, you guys, thank you for your answers there, making me look like a right arsehole, but never mind. I was about 9 or 10 at the time, so that doesn't really count. George, question for Luke. Who's the next youngster you believe is going to break into the first team? Perhaps, Luke, a name that, I guess, the Crawley game, we kind of know who the under-23s and the under-18s now. Of those names that perhaps, well, we know about Dobra, we know about El Mazzuni, and some of the kind of others, McGavin, who are hovering around the subs bench, I guess. Who's the next one for you that you're thinking is going to stake a claim for the first team proper?
Yeah, for me, I think I'd say Liam Gibbs. He's a player that I've watched a lot in the under-18 FA Youth Cup, I think, last season. Struggled to keep up with the time because of COVID and that. But yeah, I watched him play in the under-18 FA Youth Cup, and I really liked him in there. Most recently got promoted to the under-23s and obviously played in a lot of the EFL Trophy games last season and this season. I think most recently, from what the club have put out on Twitter today, that him and Dylan Crow, who also featured the other night against Crawley, are currently training with the first team, as they like to do with the young players. I think Liam Gibbs is a player that is in a similar position, I'd say, to what maybe Brett McGavin is, where he's kind of on the cusp of being involved and maybe might benefit from a loan. I think, you've got a lot of exciting players coming through, to be completely honest. You've got someone like Albi Armin, who is a centre half.
You done a video about, you're a big fan of his, aren't you?
Left back, yeah. I was talking to his dad the other day. He was giving me a rave review about him. Xander Saziba, who played the other day, weirdly in a kind of deep lying midfield role. It's not really his position. He's more of a winger. Compare his play style to that of Armando Dobra. So there are a couple of young players, on the cusp of being involved. It's just obviously the management team to notice that and give them a chance.
Exactly right. Mark, any young players caught your eye? Did you watch the Crawley game by any chance?
I didn't know. Just personal choice. Didn't really. I don't really.
You missed nothing, by the way.
I'm not paying 10 quid. But yeah, I've got short arms, deep pockets, as they say. No, I think a name I've heard a lot about is Tommy Smith, and I look at our squad and I think where we lack someone in a future role. Tristan Snyder may be that dark horse that may fill in at left back. Only time will tell. We haven't seen a lot of him there. But I look around the squad and where perhaps there's a position that will become vacant. Stephen Ward, I love Wardy. 35 though, he's going to be seeking pastures new or a comfy chair sooner rather than later. Miles Kenlock, I think we all know what type of player Miles is, unfortunately. And I've heard rave reviews about Tommy Smith. I think he had a good loan spell at Bury Town in the past, and I think now he's more involved with the under-23 setup. So maybe in the next couple of years, I think maybe that would be the one. And we've got a good track record of bringing fullbacks through, so hopefully he'll be the next on the conveyor belt.
Can Gibbs play left back, Luke? Am I right? Can he play down the left hand side, Gibbs, or have I made that up?
Yeah, probably more of a left midfield. I saw him play, I think, number 10 centrally in the FA Youth Cup, I think, last year. But yeah, he can play. I've seen him play wide left. I've seen him play wide right. I think Tommy Smith, as Mark mentioned, is a player that I think is, in a similar position to, I think, what I meant with Liam Gibbs. Played a bit in pre-season. The club seemed to rate him. I think I sat next to his family at one of the FA Youth Cup games last season. They were telling me he's this kind of quick left back. And the first time I think I saw him, I was actually blown away. Actually, one person I forgot to mention is Zach Brown. He came on the other day against Crawley. He's a very direct player, very, very fast, clinical with the ball at his feet. I think scored a hat-trick in a comeback win at Birmingham. I think it was a 5-3 win. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember him getting a hat-trick and coming back. But yeah, there's definitely players to be excited about.
England 4, Iceland 3 is the score. No, that's a lie. It's not. It's still 4-0. Don't go anywhere. Let's go through these questions, guys. I'm going to kind of alternate, or if you've got a strong opinion about something, shout up. But otherwise, I'll try to alternate the questions here between you. Mark, Bob Lockhart. Now we're out of the cups. No excuse as far as the league goes.
Well, I've seen that phrase banded about the last few weeks. Obviously, ever since we've exited both cups a couple of weekends ago. I don't think there was any excuses anyway, even with the cups. I think at the start of the season, we all know where the lay of the land was. We were all very, very disappointed. That's probably putting it very politely, at how the season curtailed last year. And really, there was no excuses. We all believe this squad is good enough, and I think so do the management team. They do believe it's good enough to get out of this division. And the depth is there. We've got over 40 players on the books. Yes, some of them haven't had much first team experience, but I think if you compare it to some of the other sides, particularly some of the teams we faced early doors like Rochdale, Bristol Rovers, people like that, our second team should be able to compete against them quite comfortably. But people do like to see a cup run as well, and I can see where people's frustrations lie. I went on the unfortunate journey of the leasing.com trophy cup run last year, went all the way down to Exeter for a 1-0 Lee Martin extra time winner. So that was
ticked
not
off a
fun.
92 round though, eh?
Yeah.
Don't have to go back.
No, definitely not going that long journey down there again. But I don't. Yeah, like I said, I don't think there was any excuses anyway. Not from me personally. I think we're probably more than good enough to get to progress in the cup, particularly the FA Cup. I know there's a little bit of controversy with refereeing decisions and that, and obviously their winner was offside. But there's no excuses from me anyway. I think we've got the squads to compete for promotion in the league and at least progress in one, if not two, of the cups.
Yep. I think we agree with you, Bob. And Mark is you can tell that Mark's a podcaster because, like all the rest of the Blue Monday team, when I host and ask a question, I don't get 2 words, I don't get 3 words, I get the whole answer. So thank you to Mark. Thorough. That is what we want. Also, Mark, can you tell me about this? Mark told me not to swap Ziyech in my FPL draft league. Should I know who Ziyech is, by the way? And is this something that I'm missing out on? Is this something offensive that I've put up on the screen by mistake? I did it and regret it.
This is Mark on Twitter, Mark with a C. He came to me for fantasy advice. I don't really play fantasy football, to be honest. I usually set up a team with good intentions and completely forget about it by game week 3. So I think I've still got Danny Ings in my team. So that says how much I've remembered. I think I forgot my password, which is a problem. There we go. But yeah, he came to me for a bit of advice. He had Ziyech, who plays for Chelsea. They signed him from Ajax in January, but he'd been injured for pretty much the whole time, and obviously the season being curtailed. He was waiting and waiting. He said, do I swap him out? And I said, no, keep hold of him. He'll come back after the international break. This was the first international break. And he decided to, he didn't stick, he twisted. I think he swapped for a couple of Wolves players. And yeah, Ziyech, lo and behold, has come back from injury and got off to an absolute flyer in his Chelsea career. So yeah, I'm going to say that's an absolute fluke though. So don't come to me for fantasy advice for a man who can't even remember his password for his account.
Luke, evening to Tim Pashley, our friend down on the south coast. Evening, Tim. Hope you're doing well. Evening, as much as this will be hated, did all right with no money. His adaptive long-term style wasn't appreciated by the people who walk through the gates. Do you agree with that view, Luke? I think you mentioned it as well. The lack of investment was largely something out of Mick's control, but yeah, did all right with the hand that he was dealt. Would you say?
Yeah, I think he obviously getting to the playoffs is something that many managers want to achieve, to actually get to that point, to give them a fighting chance of getting promoted. So I think, considering he didn't have a big budget and the spending powers that maybe other clubs in the similar positions of the league did, I think that it is a good a good achievement. But I still think that over a long period of time, you need to, whether it be become self-sustainable and build up young players and sell them on for profit, which I feel is what we need to become. And because I can't see the owner investing, wads of cash to use. And
Tim's then followed that. They pay their money and then start their views, but the budget is lower Championship at least. I think we can all agree that as well. I made a big mistake by talking about Mick, but So I think we'll there's one more from. I just want to say good day to Michael, who's down under in Australia. Felt Mick was left out to dry by Marcus, but he didn't help himself. I think we've done the Mick debate to death. So let's move on. Nick, if the players stayed, Paul Hurst may have done okay. Any thoughts on that one? Was Paul Hurst always going to be a bit of a... Oh, neither of you going anywhere near this one. I'll move on.
It's a tough one because I think we all wanted it to work. I think a lot of us, people who wanted McCarthy gone at the time, I think we sold ourselves a dream that wasn't really there. I think now that I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser, a few grey hairs coming in now. That you look at it on paper, we go, we lost Waghorn, McGoldrick, Garner. Obviously, Selena was on loan. Where are the goals going to come from? I personally, I don't see it. We'll never know, and I don't think, sadly for Paul Hurst, he'll ever get a championship job ever again as a result.
No. I've just looked down, and there are more comments about Mick. I will try to move us on. No. Ryan Catterite, I know Lambert won't do this, and I expect to see Judge, Sears, Nolan, but would like to see a 4-2-3-1 develop, and he's given his team there Holy Chambers, Wolf, McGuinness, Ward, Andre, McGavin, Edwards, Bishop, Lancaster, Norwood. Luke, what's your take on that one?
Yeah,
we've dabbled with the 4-2-3-1 a little bit, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's similar to a 4-3-3 in the fact that instead of just playing another central midfielder, it's more advanced. So he can switch between the 4-3-3 and the 4-2-3-1 when he wants to. Yeah, I think that's a good one, really. I think in terms of what he's doing, I probably wouldn't play Bishop as a number 10. I don't know how he's lining up. He's got Lancaster in there, as obviously probably on the wing. I like the look of the personnel. Yeah, I think it'd work well. I think in terms of a number 10, I would, even though we've seen Dobra play a lot as a winger, from what I've seen in under 23s and the like, I'd love to see him play at number 10. But I think with the way that we're playing at the moment, the way that we're lining up as a team, I think the system works. I think it's just getting the personnel right to make the system become more effective.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was a good balance to that team as well, Ryan. So I liked some of that. Yep. Mick. Do you think Mick would have got us promoted last season with the same team Lambert had? Yes or no?
Never. We'll never know, would we?
Right, we're not going near there.
Yeah.
James Roddick's asked us a Mick question. I'm sorry, guys, that I brought this up. As Blue Sofa said, never go back. I'm never going back to Mick. Here we go. George. Darren McAntony said how hard is for a lower league manager to have success going into a bigger club as the players are too big-headed and they don't buy in. This was clearly the case under Hurst. Do you think there was some truth in that, Mark?
I'd say so. I think for him, it was all about making his mark, wasn't it? He was trying to establish himself that, he's come from Grimsby, then Shrewsbury. No disrespect to either of those clubs, but in terms of stature compared to Ipswich, especially being a championship club, it's poles apart. And I think for him to come in, especially on the back of what is a very experienced manager who has been previously named quite a lot, but I think for him, it's such a culture change for him, and I think there's things he wanted to change. I think we're all aware of the sports science things that we still sort of grinds our gears. Every time an injury seems to crop up, but I don't know. I'm really not sure on Paul Hurst's time. Really, I don't think he would have turned it around. And yeah, unfortunately, I think the summer that preceded, where we like we just said, we lost all our goals out of the team. That was basically what was keeping us afloat. Really, like we've said, we didn't have the budget in terms of doing that, and we basically sold all our. We gave away a good hand, and yeah, we didn't really get anyone that was of the quality of what we lost really to replace him.
I agree with that. I think there's possibly a view that where we are now, suddenly Paul Hurst doesn't look as bad as he was at the time, and I think it's a little bit revisionist and a little bit kind of there's like just a type of bias,
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. You know, he was always going to take us down. Yeah, that was that kind of grudging inevitability. And maybe he'd been a better manager appointed into a League One team, but that's what we weren't at the time. We are now. So, yeah, I don't think we can be creative with history. Nick was at the 5-0 Norwich. I was also at that game. That was memorable. Barnes Barley, not sure if this is true, but HD wasn't invented when we beat City. That is correct. Someone will correct me here. When was the last time we played Man City? We lost them in the FA Cup. That was horrible. That was live on Match Today. So was
late
it
90s, wasn't it?
Well, we beat them. We relegated them.
Oh, did we?
In the 2000-2001 season at Portman Road. So if Barnes Barley and anyone else who can remember, I can't recall another Man City game after the Isle Berkovic FA Cup debacle. So I think that's probably correct. Blue Soap was behind the goal for that Megason goal. I think I might have been as well, possibly Cobbold, can't remember. Where are we? Matthew Watts, lucky enough to have witnessed the Burley years and go to Wembley beating Barnsley, topped it. I've had some random thing called Portman Plus to watch Premier League games. Wow. Don't know much about that. Here we go, Barles. Luke, if we ain't in the top 6 still by Christmas, Lambert will have to go if we slide again. Should we talk about Lambert a little bit here? What I might do, Luke, answer that question, but what I will do is I will just put up the fixtures that we have coming up over the next 2 to 3 weeks over your face. Apologies for that. Luke is still there. Luke, tell us about your thoughts on Lambert and whether there's any chance what results does it take here apart from maybe 6 defeats? You can't see Portsmouth at the bottom because of the crawler. Let me remove that. There we go. Apart from 6 defeats, what leads to Lambert going here, or is he here for the foreseeable because of that long-term contract for you?
Yeah, I think I was at the Lincoln 5-3 last season when he got given this. I think it was Lincoln, or might have been Wickham, when he was given the 5-year deal. And I think at the time I was on the coach going to the game and was kind of, I think we were all shocked by what was going on. I thought it was someone, putting a spoof account on Twitter or something like that when I saw it happen. I think at the time, a club, I think we were still second in the table back then. There was the rise that followed and, the really bad results that we had. I struggle to see how he can be here if something similar happens again. I think, if the season was to have continued at the end of the season before it was curtailed, I think, we didn't look like we were going to win. We had a lot of our main players out injured, Norwood, and I think Jackson just got suspended. So we were in a similar position where we, if that season had continued and lost and kept falling down the table, maybe he wouldn't have stayed. Obviously, what happened. I think out the next 6 games, I think you've got teams coming up like Charlton, Hull. You need to really kind of beat the sides around us, really. As much as it was good to see us get a goal back against Sunderland, we didn't really knock down the doors per se to really win the game. Obviously, the decisions that happened, which obviously I don't agree with, I don't think they were good decisions. It made the game, even though we lost in that manner, there was no real of, we're going to win this game, we're going to knock the doors down. As you've got up on the screen, the next 6 games are Shrewsbury at home, which is a team, I've actually got some notes on my phone. I think they're, give me a second.
We'll come back to Shrewsbury at the end maybe, Luke.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, you've got Hull and Charlton coming up. Hull were a team where they were relegated from the Championship, and I think a fashion like when we did, where they were struggling to score, they were conceding goals left, right, and centre, and they've kept quite a lot of their team that they had last season. They've got Keane Lewis Potter, who was a very highly regarded young player for them, scoring goals for fun. Charlton are a team which I think are up there, going to be up there by the end of the season. They've got Connor Washington firing on all cylinders for them. Oxford, they're a team that surprised me, I think. They signed a bunch of really good, decent players. They got Matt Taylor on a permanent deal during the summer. And I think that they were going to do better than what they have done. You've got Plymouth in there as well, who I think for me are one of my dark horses in the competition. They played really well against Portsmouth in the first half the other day. and one
Good home form.
Yeah, they're very good home form. I think they're unbeaten at unbeaten at home. They played really well in that game and conceded 2 quick second half goals and ended up getting a late draw from Apoku. I think he was on loan at Accrington, on loan from Fulham. So they're a team I think that can, cause us problems. And then you've got Portsmouth, who we know a lot about, and it is a team that I probably would expect us to win. The fact that we pushed with a kind of second string rotated side got them. Obviously we didn't start the game well in that game, but we came back into it and we gave them questions. Obviously the goal that they scored was offside, which we've spoken about. But I think that's the team that we probably should be hoping that we can win if we can push them with our second string side. If we've got a first side with, we worry now in the fact that we've had a long break with the international break, and we've got to always come into next 3 games. So I think are really important.
What's your take on these fixtures, Mark? I'll put them back up for you. And as I said to Luke, what does it take out of these for Lambo to get possibly axed if things don't go our way?
The thing is, I'm not sure about if he would get axed. I think a lot of the tide very much turned, very quickly after the wheels kind of fell off again. We talk about their back-to-back defeats against Doncaster and Lincoln. The tide quickly shift against Lambert once again. And for me, I think, like Luke said it there, I think he probably shouldn't really be here, let's be honest. The way the season fell apart last year, that would have only probably continued to get worse. But we've got to commend how we started the season. I think we started very well. Addressed some issues that were obviously
There's
there
the league table, by
previously.
the way.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Still there.
It reminds me a bit of Darren Moore at West Brom when we got him sacked. I know he lost. It would be a bit premature compared to when he went, but we're flying high, but we're not convinced, are we? And we've got where we fell down ultimately last season. We're playing teams who you'd expect to be up there. And if we can't get results against them, then you're not going to be up there at the end of the season. And yeah, I think Sunderland, when they had their first season in League One, had a big problem where they were falling to a similar fate, really. They were drawing and ultimately not beating the teams around them. And that's why they ended up in the playoffs. And when you're in the playoffs, you're going to be against promotion rivals. And if you can't beat them in the league, you're probably not going to beat them in the playoffs. So for Lambert, I think for him to get, I just can't see him getting the axe. It's such a bizarre situation. It's a 5-year deal. How much that is worth, we'll never know, really. But I think if he still averages sort of 2 points a game, he'll still be here, won't he?
Yeah.
But I think fans will want to see the back of him if we can't beat Charlton, at least one of those sides. We've got to beat a Charlton, a Hull, a Portsmouth, perhaps even 2 of them to really put minds at rest. But in his defence, I think what I mentioned earlier about the squad being a good squad and something we all believe to be a good squad, I think the problem we have, they're a good squad on their day, and I think we have a highly inconsistent squad, which I think their mindset isn't always there. When the back's against the wall, it's very often we go into our shells. The amount of times we've lost a midfield battle this season is quite frankly baffling. And I think that's our biggest problem. If every player that we've got is on top form, then it's probably a side that would run away with this league. The problem we have is that they're so inconsistent and they just go through patches of form, and that's ultimately what I feel might be our downfall in the end. But it might take the right manager to bring that out of them. Some of that motivation comes from the management side, and maybe the failings of the past have really sort of been laid bare, and that's why they kind of seem to down tools a little bit at times.
We'll see. I'm still not seeing a compelling reason to keep Will Lambert, but based on what you guys have told me at least. But then I'm still having this kind of grudging sense that it will be like last season all over again.
It's there, isn't it? It's that lingering feeling. It's
until
always
we beat
there
a top
with
10
an
team, it's always going to be there. I'm just noticing that I'm reading comments from half an hour ago, so I'm going to blitz through these really quickly, and then we're going to finish on Shrewsbury because I know Luke's got something to say, and I know Mark's done some prep as well. organised young men. You know, these are the guys putting in the hard yards, not people like me just rock up 15 minutes before we go on air. I'm sure this is meant with peace and love, Luke. Buy Luke a proper cam, tech him up, and make him a regular on these lives. Guy's passion and knowledge is great. You are making investments, aren't you, Luke? I think we think it's broadband issues, but we can hear him loud and clear, so that's all good. And I'm sure that's meant with peace and love, as I said. What else have we got here? Nick, I was born and live in London, but for some reason, chose Ipswich. We'll have you, Nick. One of us. Doesn't matter where you're from. Say our beloved Ipswich, Bars. Say our beloved Ipswich went under. Could you support any other team in like going into the ground? I think, Mark, your point is convenience is a real key factor, isn't it?
It is. I've got Debenham Leisure Centre up the road. Maybe they could be a rags to riches story, and I could be a part of that. But I don't know. I think there's, as much as we all love football, there's a lot more to life to football. And I think, as we've seen with many clubs, you look at AFC Wimbledon. I think Bury are going through a similar thing now. I don't think Ipswich would, as much as they would cease to exist in their current iteration, the club wouldn't die. The fans wouldn't let it. I think we're too big to let Ipswich die.
Knocking on wood. Talking of that, Mikey Smith, does Debenham LC still do Indian takeaway, Mark? It does.
It's very good. Good old Zeras. Yeah, come on down. I'm not getting paid to not doing the prices right either.
The new sponsor for the unrestricted pod.
I've asked, but no.
No.
I would Alan Partridge style sponsorship. I don't get any shop soiled
chocolate
curries or anything. No.
Good stuff. George, Luke needs a job in ITFC recruitment team. Here, George. Michael, I remember Norwich beating Ipswich 2-1 at Portman Road. It showed the power of the fans. Jimmy Bone telling the Norwich fans to shout louder as you could see how much it affected us. Oh, that feels like it's before my time, Michael. You might need to help us out there. George, I played football with Xander. He did play as a deep midfielder, us, although he's a winger. There you go, Luke. Some insights there. Joe, hello to Joe. If you had to back one player in the squad to cut it in the Premier League, who would it be? Let's keep it brief, guys, if we can. We're going to time out otherwise. Luke, I'll start with you on this one.
Oh yeah, from the start, I'd probably just say Flynn Downs. Keep it brief.
Flynn Downs, Mark.
I completely agree. I'm very surprised he's still here, to be honest.
Okay, I think I'll endorse that. We'll go all three for Flynn Downs there. We're going to talk about this very briefly as well. I know that Andrew asked us about this before. Adam Flatt, will the new 5 subs rule help us moving forward? I guess people are going to get some appearance bonuses that they might not have otherwise.
Yeah, how many are we going to see on Saturday? I still think we're going to just see the one on Saturday.
5 subs in the 87th minute.
Can they do all 5 at once?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
They have incremental times where they can do it. I think part time is included in that. But I think it is a good way to, if we're winning a game convincingly, and obviously you don't need to, if you're, I don't know, say if we're playing a team like Oxford and you're winning 3-0, if you've got youngsters on the bench that you can bring on to giving game time that otherwise you wouldn't been able to do, people like McGavin that maybe might not be starting as many games, people like Gibbs or Dobra that I've mentioned previously, if you're giving one of the 5 subs for a chance for them to appear in the game, I think it's good. I think at the moment, from some fans, a lot of what they're confused about is the fact that when they look at the subs bench, there tends to be quite a lot of defenders on there. I think it tends to have gone down in the last couple of weeks, but when they had like NCR and McGuinness, Kenlock, people like that on the subs bench, I think if they were to name our subs bench well and give it a good depth of players that you could bring on, I think it's good in a way because it shows that with a squad like ours, sometimes when you look at the subs bench, you look at how strong it is. Obviously, it puts a burden on in the brackets lesser clubs that probably don't have that squad strength and made it harder for them. But I think with how the season is, with the crazy amount of games they have to play, I think it is a good thing in a way because it does, the risk of injury is diminished.
Yeah, thoughts, Mark, on the Championship gets 2 extra places on the bench. We don't.
Interesting, isn't it?
Sounds a
I
bit
think
tin pottery of Leagues 1 and 2, if you ask me, that we haven't.
Yeah, I think ourselves and Sunderland will probably be a little bit nipped about that, because we've probably got players that you look at when a squad, you've got the players that don't make the 18-man squad. There's probably a few players that we were like, why aren't they in the squad? We could probably do with them extra 2 players. I like the idea, if we can use all 5 at once, if we've got a last-minute corner, just bring on Wilson, just bring on Holy if as an outfield player, just bring on all the tall lads for a last-minute corner and just win 1-0 at one game. Very Mick McCarthy-esque. There we go. He comes round again. He always comes up, doesn't he?
Come on, Mark. I'm doing my best here. Come on. We'll bring on 3 defenders if we're holding on to a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
To exploit the 6-4 formation. Bob, thanking to you. Great show, boys. Here. Oh, Ginger Eagles going big. Maybe this is one for another time, because I'm noticing we're clocking them to 1 hour. And I want to talk about Shrewsbury maybe another time, but I think there's lots of theories around that one. Thoughts on, if Lambert fails before the end of the season, who would you want? I want one name very quickly. Who's your replacement for Paul Lambert if it happens? Paul Cook is Bars' suggestion.
Danny Cowley.
Luke?
The exact same.
I'm going to go Kieran Dyer. There you go.
Ooh.
How about that? Adam just logged in, so I don't know what went on. Oh, you missed some epic bants earlier on, Adam. I was on top form. No, I wasn't. But these guys, these guests, know their stuff. A welcome addition to the Blue Monday Can. Yeah, this is a cameo appearance, right, guys? You've got your own brands. We're just cross-pollinating. We are cross-promoting whatever my hands. I don't know what my hands are doing. That 5-year deal was absolutely ridiculous. We're all the big issues tonight. George 3, regardless of league position, I think investment in January will take us up. Otherwise, I could see it. I mean, this is the same things we were saying last season as well, wasn't it, guys? Do you think we spend anything? Luke, are we spending any money in January for you? And I guess the question is not what would you do? It's what do you think Marcus and Lambert will do? They won't, will they?
I don't think they will. I think every year, my dad usually grew up as a young kid and had the playoff success. Whenever we get to like an important transfer window, like where we are in the season, he always says, "Oh, I remember when we got to January and we signed Marcus Stewart and he scored all them goals that got us to the the playoffs and that sort of thing." I'd love to see us do that, because I think ultimately it was a burden on us when we got to the playoff. Well, when we were pushing for the playoffs under Mick, I think if you use a couple of million or 500,000 here and there to put it into the club, maybe that money would have got us up to the Premier League. It could have done wonders for us. Ultimately, I don't think that's going to happen. I think you think about sellable assets, people like that. Flynn Downs has been injured for most of the season, so you can't really expect many Premier League clubs to be sniffing to even sell him. And even if you were going to sell him, you wouldn't do it at that point of the season. I struggle to see why the owner would change his view on things. You can only really expect a player to be sold for one to come in. And I struggle to see who that's going to be.
That's what Nick says, George. We may lose a player. That might be, given COVID and all that kind of stuff, that might be a factor. Michael, as football fans, you always live in hope, but I feel we're not going to score enough goals to get us up. Mark, thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, I do agree. I love Ollie Hawkins, but he ain't got a goal in him really. I did predict his first goal. I got my mystic ball out for that one, but no, playing one up top, I think we've been blessed with this lightning start of our midfielders, but I've said it, maybe it's my glass half full attitude, half empty, isn't it? Sorry, that the goals will dry up from midfield. It cannot be sustainable. It's very rare that you get a midfielder who will carry on this form. I know Teddy, Bishop and Guion have been performing really well, but ultimately you need those strikers who'll tuck away chances that your midfielders simply can't, and I just can't see it lasting. But I'd love to be proven wrong.
This is what sorry to cover up your face while you were talking as well. This was the same last season as well. This is the XG table. And I know we've got lots of people who would tell us that XG is a pile of crap. It's all about using these stats as a combination rather than using one. But this is telling us that on XG, Ipswich will be 13th in the league, and that doesn't surprise me. It hasn't surprised me for the last few years that the quality of our chances, at least using XG as a metric, is not good enough. Think about the last, Ollie Hawkins' header is possibly the best XG goal we scored all season. Look at Blackpool, even Gwion Edwards' goal from inside the area was to one side. Chambers scored from the edge of the box. 2 long ranges from Bishop and the other one from Edwards as well. We don't create good quality chances, and there's a point where your luck runs out a little bit scoring from range or just around the penalty area, and those are the kind of goals we score. So I think you've got a point there. Michael also supported my theory about Butch and Dyer. Now, I am on this, but I'm getting looks of skepticism from my colleagues, so I will I'll move on from that one. Nick, not a fan of sacking managers. Bibba Robson took 3 seasons before he started to build that team. I guess the debate there, Nick, is whether Lambert and Robson are cut from the same cloth. Here's one for you, Luke Graham. John Tate, Ipswich of no ball when is in a lightweight midfield. Does Downs or McGavin contribute to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think Downs is a very pivotal player. I think when we miss him, we realise his importance. I think you've seen Hughes coming in and out of the team, and has been a player that has unfortunately not reached the heights since his injury. And they always mention on the BBC radio stuff at commentary whenever I watch I follow. They always they always ask Mick Mills, it's like, what do you think of the midfielders? Like he was always saying that it's lightweight, with Lancaster in there, Bishop, players like that. In the summer, I heard a couple of people talking about getting a player in like Michael Boswick. I think he signed for Burton. But he was that kind of player where he might be slightly older, but he's that kind of bustly player in midfield that you really, really needed. A while back, I actually did a video about a player called Abu Adams, who's ex-Norwich, but he's played for Ebbsfleet and now plays for Forest Green. But he was a player that he can play deep line and is a ball-winning midfielder at heart, but he also has that kind of dribbling, taking on players like the way Bishop does, and has added goals to his game. So I think, that is the thing that comes down for me a lot when I look at our central midfield and options. They're players that are generally built the same way and tend to offer similar things. There's not really much variation in the players. So I think that's something that if we were to invest in a window or something like that, that might be something that we were to do. But I think, in terms of, when we're getting overrun in the game and we need to go into it, with someone like Downs out injured, you can't really rely on someone like McGavin, who hasn't really played that much first team football, to come on and kind of vice versa take over his role. So I think that is a role that we lack, in my opinion.
A double hard bastard. Bars Barley, will KVY ever return? I mean,
no,
who knows?
He's gone.
That's
Getting on to a year now, isn't it?
Yeah, I watched him a lot at Colchester. I watched him play majority at left back. I'd never actually seen him play at right back, funnily enough, before he signed here. And throughout then, I was talking to a couple of people at Colchester that I knew, and they were telling me that he had a couple of injuries, but nothing of really real significance. That was,
welcome to Ipswich.
Yeah. So when he got injured originally, I kind of thought, well, he's going to come back. We saw him a bit in pre-season, played a couple of games, and then he disappeared again. I think there is an underlying issue in terms of player injuries. Every season we tend to just get this big amount of injuries for no reason whatsoever. Quickly, though, going back to Paul Hurst quickly, when he was actually here, he brought in a head of sports science. I think his name was Nathan Winder. I might be wrong about the exact name, but he brought in someone who's now currently at Sheffield United.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing at the time that he was a player that was widely regarded in the field of what he was doing. So it was probably a shame if we couldn't keep someone like him around. I guess that shows a lot, really, with them bringing in McGoldrick and keeping him as fit as he was. I do think that is an issue, though, that needs to be discussed, or whether it be by fans or the club in general.
Yeah, I mean, the trouble is, Luke, it's going to take money to upgrade our sports science, isn't it? And there's no money in League One. Evening to Ben, who I know was chatting about the England game earlier. Sharing out the fouls becomes fun with 5 subs. Exactly right. Everyone takes a shit housery. We're after 10 o'clock. I'm going to swear once. A shit housery yellow card, and then share them around a little bit. And we've got a shout for Paul Cook, along with Danny Cowley. Oh, I'm nearly at the end of the comments. That's all right. Good, because we've hour and 10. The views are holding strong. Thank you for staying with us. I don't know if it's kind of like passing the baton on or not. Well, we're going to finish on Shrewsbury. So any last minute predictions for Shrewsbury on Saturday? Want to hear from you on that. Great guest, says Blue Soap as well. And Michael's late for work. Have a good day, Michael. You're probably already gone. Let me put the league table back up. Who wants to talk to me about Shrewsbury? Who's done their research? Both of you, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've both done research. 1 minute each, if that's all right.
Okay, yeah, I'll start if that's all right. Yeah, I'll try and do it quickly. They're currently second in League One, have 5 draws, 5 defeats, 10 goals scored, 17 conceded. Their current top goal scorer is central defender Aaron Pierre. Is actually a player that I talked on us getting this season. I think their lead assist maker is Mark Pugh, who most recently signed on a free transfer from QPR or Bournemouth, if I recall. They're a team that we beat last season, I think, like 3-1. In terms of them, they're struggling for goals. They play a 3-4-3 with Matthew Miller. I haven't really heard much about him. I need to look into him. And Charlie Daniels at the wing-back position, so they tend to play 3 at the back. They're a team that obviously, shipping goals. I think they've got Leon Clark and Cummins on their books, but they don't really seem to be at it, in my opinion. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, because the weekend they played Swindon and they were 2-0 up in 16 minutes and ended up during the game 3-3. So maybe that was new manager syndrome for Swindon with John Sheridan in charge. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when they come to Portman Road on Saturday.
Yeah, just looking at the league table here, Mark, and let me get this back up. No wins in 5. They are 22nd in the league table. How are you feeling going into this one?
Well, it's got 0-0 written all over it, isn't it, really? If you're an Ipswich fan. But
you're a glass half full. No, you're not. You're a glass haven't you?
I don't know what I am, to be honest, half the time. I'll give a quick shout out to ITFC Analytics. He's someone I work closely with on the podcast. He always makes me look a lot more intelligent than I actually am when talking about football. He'll have a good preview ahead of the game on Saturday. But yeah, Luke's covered it really. 3-4-3. I'm very surprised Sam Ricketts is still there, because I don't think they're particularly happy with the way he plays. I think it's a very defensive, kind of quite turgid system that he's got there.
Moribund. Sorry.
Yeah, not a great style of football, unfortunately. So for us, my worries are is that they're going to see us as a big threat, a big team coming down there, and maybe be happy with a point. And we have shown at times that we do struggle to break teams down. I think when we have, scored goals, that has often been on the counter attack, or when we've created an imbalance, shifted the defence one way and quickly moved the ball the other way. So, I don't really. I'm not very optimistic, unfortunately. But I'd love to be proven wrong.
What's your midfield 3, Mark?
Because
Dazzel's obviously suspended.
I think McGavin deserves a start. I think he did an absolute sterling job against Portsmouth. I'd like to see him given a start. And I think for him, that was a great moment for him, because I think the times we've seen him before is very much the scapegoat. He's just chucked in for, out of the blue. I think Fleetwood was when he came in the league last. Yeah. I remember last season, and everyone was like, where has he come from? And then he got hauled off at half time. Bless him. So I'd like to see McGavin start. I think Hughes, he probably deserves a start, just to give us a little bit more stability. And I think we need to get him back to match sharpness, really. I think Emir has struggled a little bit to shake off that rustiness that he's got in his game. And then I think Teddy Bishop should play again. Again, he's probably been the best of our midfield 3. And I'd still like to see Jack Lancaster involved, but maybe a little bit further forward. Playing in an advanced role or out wide. So, yeah, that'd be more midfield 3.
Who's your back centre-back pairing, Luke?
Mark McGuinness and Wolfenden. I heard he'd come back after he self-isolated. For me, I think they're for the way we want to play as a team, the way that we want to pass out the back off the goalkeeper, and what we've been doing. I think they're the 2 players that, for me, in central defence, are the most comfortable in doing that. For me, McGuinness is a player that I've been really impressed with from what I've seen. Obviously, he's very raw. It's his first professional loan spell, but he he's a kind of jack of all trades, really. You know, he's quite he's deceptively quick on the ball. He's comfortable with the ball at his feet, and he tends to put in some, you know, really good challenges to win the ball for us. I think having them two players, you know, playing in our central defence whenever the keeper's passing out to him short, I tend to have more confidence in them doing that rather than an NCR or someone like that playing alongside Wolfenden or McGuinness. So yeah, they're the two centre halves I'd go for.
I'm going to come back for a final score prediction right at the end. What I'm going to do very quickly is do some plugs. I'm going to put your Twitter names up there. That is where you can find the guys. What have we got here as well? Let me put some screenshots up of where we can find your content as well. Luke, that's your YouTube channel. What kind of stuff do you put on there?
Yeah, I kind of do a bunch of stuff really. Obviously with transfer window stuff, whenever the transfer window gets close, I try and, you know, make videos about, you know, players that I think that we could sign in certain positions. And sometimes when we're linked in the media with certain players, I try to find out as much as I can about them or have prior knowledge of them to let fans know who might see articles about certain players. I've done a lot recently about the academy, obviously with the EFL trophy and them kind of games, letting fans know a little bit more about the young players that are coming through. I tend to do a bunch of stuff really based on recruitment and that sort of thing. So
right, and yeah, Luke's Twitter is there. And Mark, tell us about Unrestricted. Back this week.
Yeah, back this week. So yeah, had a little bit of a break. So just basically just a general overview of the Ipswich Town world and all that's been going on. I try to be as optimistic as I can, but you know what I'm like. I can be very up and down. Sometimes glass half full, sometimes glass half empty. Load of randomness in there. Sometimes lots of sound effects and all sorts of random fun to try and make it as entertaining as possible. Like. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, you are down. You know, you're of that age. That's fine. We're straight down the middle. Chat and some kind of swirly effects is all we're good for. So
yeah, exactly.
And yeah, you've got a Twitter as well, don't you, for that?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on there, it's not all Ipswich Town dedicated. Some random stuff on there as well. But yeah, if you'd like me rambling on like I have done on here tonight, then my Twitter is the perfect place to see that in type form. And
your pod's got a Twitter account as well. I meant as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's at ITFC_UNR. So
as for Blue Monday, where I am back in the pod hot seat, I think I'm joined by Joe and Craig. We'll be talking about Ipswich Shrewsbury. We've got certainly a live show next week, at least one live show next week actually. I think certainly we'll be doing Hull, and there may or may not be. I might get Joe back, and we might talk FM21 as well. So we might do that as a live show as well. Let's finish off with some score predictions. I think we've towed the balance between being constructive but a little bit critical of Ipswich Town's situation. But on the score predictions, Nick with a 4-1. Run with the 3-1 win and a Gwyn Edwards hat trick and a great show, guys. Keep up the good work. Michael down under 5-1 and off the work. And here we go. It's like an auction. 6-1 from Andreas. Anyone want to go higher than a 6-1? No. Mark, give me your thoughts.
0-0. I'm sticking with it and prove me wrong, Ipswich.
Come on, Luke. I can't end on a 0-0. Do me better than a 0-0.
2-1.
2-1. Lovely stuff. I'll go with it. Yeah, exactly right. Who to? Yeah. I love that. Well, I'll go with that too. I'll go for a 2-1 as well. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your comments. Really helpful in driving on the debate. Give these guys a follow, and we will catch you at some point in the future. Take care. Say goodbye, guys.
See ya.